Welcome back into Sports Talk Chicago. Joey Christopoulos here. You can follow me at Joey Sports Guy. You can follow us at Sports Talk Chicago, Sports Talk Shy, wherever you get your socials, Instagram, Twitter, and the like. Thank you so much for listening on our great radio affiliates across the great state of Illinois, or whether you're watching here on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe below, or check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, doesn't matter, just keyword Sports Talk Chicago. Coming back here on the other side, want to talk a little bit about the MLB trade deadline. Both sides of town made some moves. Both sides of town basically said that we're selling for the season. I'm going to start with the Chicago White Sox first. At times, it is hard to describe the pain that I feel for my Chicago White Sox. Jump in the comments if you want. I was raised both. I was raised a White Sox fan and a Cubs fan. I'm happy to explain to you why I am a diehard of both. Anyone that wants to make a big deal out of it, frankly, that's a generational thing. That's your thing. That's old stuff. I love baseball. I'm allowed to watch both, especially when they have Chicago on the front of their jersey. I digress. Chicago White Sox made a couple of trades. And a couple of moves that they didn't make, too, as well. I'll get to those in a second. Let's talk about the ones that they did. The ones that they did are being, like everything with the Chicago White Sox this season, being completely dragged across the coals with anyone with a baseball pulse. And I think here's the reason. First of all, they traded Eric Fedde and Tommy Pham to the St. Louis Cardinals. In the same deal, they also traded Michael Kopech to the Los Angeles Dodgers. In return, they got 3 minor league players. So let's just start with simple math. When you trade a guy, Eric Fedde, who's 7-4, about a 3 ERA, tracking at this point right now to have a WAR over 7. You trade a guy like Tommy Pham, who's, a starting outfielder on a really bad team, a fringe fourth outfielder on maybe a fringe contending team, a professional hitter. Someone that obviously the St. Louis Cardinals wanted, and he hit a grand slam in his first at-bat in the return in the Redbirds jersey. And then Michael Kopech, a guy who was the centerpiece of the Chris Sale trade, a guy that was supposed to be the front-end rotation guy of your near future. Pedro Grifol, for whatever reason, decided to make him a closer, quote unquote. Use him for multiple innings, 8 innings, 9 innings, struggled at different times. You trade those 3 guys, and you only get 3 players back. And to be very fair, those guys are Miguel Vargas, Jarrell Perez, and Alexander Albertus. You have to understand, Eric Fedde alone should have gotten you 3 prospects. And the demand for a pitcher like Eric Fedde with amazing contractual control, a guy who's having a good season, one of the best pitchers out there on the market, you're telling me that you couldn't get a corner infield prospect, corner outfield prospect? You telling me that you couldn't get a right fielder with possibly 25-plus home run pop? And then to add fuel to the fire with general manager Chris Getz first season, whole deal, you see some of the other trades that are going around Major League Baseball during this time and some of the returns. And you're saying to yourself, I mean, Chicago White Sox fans are having a little case of FOMO. And here's the problem. When you have to tank the team like this, when you have to get rid of these players because, God forbid you keep talented players on your roster and you're not saying it, but you're sort of signaling that you're not going to be good for the next 4, 5, 6 years. So we have to get rid of the good players now. You have to have people in place. They're going to be able to extract the most value that they can when you make moves like this. And it's disappointing, right? Credit to Chris Getz for finding Eric Fedde overseas, a guy who had flamed out on the Nationals in the major leagues, went over to Japan, became their version of a Cy Young winner, and then brought him back on a great deal. And Eric Fedde has pitched well. Great find. But you're turning it into a guy who most people project as a utility infielder like Miguel Vargas. It's just a sad state of affairs. On top of it, you finally get rid of Eloy Jimenez. Small golf clap for that. I don't know who Trey McGow is. I don't need to know. Had to be done, needed to be done. Eloy Jimenez, in my opinion, is one of the most obvious candidates of change of scenery, county, zip code, state guy that I've seen in quite a long time. To say it just wasn't working anymore was an understatement. And all the happy-go-lucky vibes that he used to bring to the Chicago White Sox clubhouse, at least from the outside looking in as a fan, that evaporated very quickly. And it looked like a lot of people in the clubhouse kind of got tired of his stuff. Dude was always hurt. And there is an interesting parallel between him and a guy on the other side. I just remember they came up basically in the same generation. You know, in 2015, when Kyle Schwarber was called up with the Cubs. Kyle Schwarber, you know, was a power-hitting slugger who was, I'm trying to be, you know, confident about this, but he didn't actually exactly have the same body shape then as he does now. He's a little bit doughier, maybe had a little bit of the baby fat still going. And after a tough season, Kyle Schwarber took it upon himself to completely change the way that he worked out, completely changed his diet, completely changed every single facet of how he approached to baseball off the field before he stepped on it to prepare himself as best as he possibly could. Some people were worried that, Kyle Schwarber was going to lose his power. Guess what? He hasn't, folks. I don't need to pull up the numbers. Kyle Schwarber is awesome. I miss him every single day. The point that I'm trying to make is that when Eloy came up in 2017, I mean, you looked at Eloy and he was tall with these long legs and he just seemed so graceful and powerful. And it was the opposite effect. Eloy came up with, I think, with the type of body that he needs to have now. I mean, I think he's lost it. I'm not saying, I don't think I'm speaking out of school here that Eloy is a little bit thicker around the waist than he was in 2017 when he came up. The opposite approaches have happened. And look, I get it. Like, I struggle with my stuff all the time, and I think as Eloy has gotten a little bit older, I think he's probably needed to do the discipline to, at the very least, get a sense of flexibility that can help some of the soft tissue issues, that can help get him through some of the running the base issues that he's had in the past season. I just don't think he's done that, and he's created onto himself a body that's having a hard time playing baseball on a daily basis. Kyle Schwarber did the opposite. Kyle Schwarber is hitting bombs for the Philadelphia Phillies, who are in first place, and he's making $80, $90 million on a contract. Eloy Jimenez, who knows what happens after he goes to Baltimore this year. You know, maybe they buy him out, maybe they bring him back, but, I mean, he's looking at one-year deals, prove-it style, until further notice. So, I mean, these are things that had to be done. And look, I've been very adamant on this show that they should not trade Garrett Crochet, and they didn't. I'm happy about that on multiple levels. One, the things that I've already stated. 25 years old, arbitration eligible the next 2 years, left-handed, strikeout monster. His innings are up this year, but he's in your system. You can build a routine to have him be a front of the rotation starter for you for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years. You don't necessarily, he's saying that he wants an extension from another team if he gets traded. Guess what, White Sox? If you keep him, you don't have to extend him right away. He'll go through arbitration like everybody else, and then you can continue to reassess from there. It's just mind-boggling just because the White Sox are the worst team in MLB history right now, and they're going to be, and they are right now. They've lost 16 in a row as of this taping on Wednesday. That you have to keep getting rid of good players. He's 25 years old. Are you honestly telling me that they're not going to be good for the next 8 or 9 years? Because don't sell me on this. When you have front of the rotation starting pitching like Garrett Crochet, a guy who is an all-star, you can A, catch lightning in a bottle in a season, and B, when you're trying to ascend and get up there, he's going to be 28, 29, 30 years old? That's fine. It's called the prime of your career, people. Like, Give me a break. Like when the White Sox are competitive again, every single person on the team is going to be 24 years old. It doesn't work like that, okay? He's homegrown. He's in your system. You keep him around. But on top of it now, as we're learning over the last 2 days, I'm glad the White Sox didn't trade him because I think Chris Getz would have screwed up the return. I don't think he would have gotten it right. I think he probably, if anything, needs more time. Maybe they trade him in the winter. I'll have my rant about it then. But maybe he needs more time to honestly learn the league a little bit more and to get a better return if you are going to trade the dude. Luis Robert, same story. I mean, the guy's hitting 220 right now. He looks terrible at the plate. Honestly, he looks miserable in life. I think it's the losing folks. But what return were you going to get for Luis Robert right now? Probably not much. And in the wintertime, at the very least, with Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert, you're talking to more teams that are going to have different payroll situations that are going to be, everyone's going to be 0-0, not different teams in a different spot in the standings at the particular time. A lot more options, a lot more flexibility. You can revisit it then. But man, if you're the White Sox, I mean, look, Eric Fedde, Tommy Pham, and Michael Kopech for 3 infielders. I can't wrap my head around that type of return, and it almost smacks of something like we had to do this. Time was running out, so let's just sign off on it and let's do it. I wish Michael Kopech well. He was one of the most disappointing players that I can remember in White Sox history. And again, cautionary tale, when you talk about Garrett Crochet, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So there was a time when Michael Kopech was traded for Chris Sale. Chris Sale goes off and wins a World Series. You have Michael Kopech as the new guy, and now we're literally trying to do that same thing. We're doing that now with Drew Thorpe versus Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease just threw a no-hitter recently. I'm rooting for Drew Thorpe. I want him to work out, but man, is he going to be as good as Dylan Cease? We'll see. And when you trade a Garrett Crochet, you're going to be asking the same question. Are the guys that we're getting back, are they going to be as good high-end as Garrett Crochet is right now? I have my doubts according to the way the White Sox do their business. And when you're talking about homegrown guys, I mean, for a team that's not going to spend any money in free agency, you got to at least keep the homegrown dudes around. I mean, this is Oakland A's material here, people. And we're just supposed to slurp it up and say, yeah, trade him for prospects, bottom out, and let's see where we're at. Like, I just can't accept that. I get it. The White Sox are going to be back for the next several years, but at least give me some dudes, some foundational pieces that we're going to be able to move forward with. And I think Garrett Crochet is one of those guys. That's just where I land on that.